Emma stood in front of the tall glass building, clutching her bag a little tighter as she took a deep breath. This was the opportunity she had worked toward for years. After countless interviews, late-night studying, and moments of self-doubt, she had finally landed her dream job at one of the city's most respected companies. She smiled to herself, silently promising that today would be the beginning of a brand new chapter. Inside, everything felt exciting yet overwhelming. The polished floors reflected the bright morning sunlight. Employees hurried through the hallways with coffee cups in hand, and quiet conversations filled the modern office. Emma followed the receptionist to the orientation room, trying to calm the nervous butterflies in her stomach. She reminded herself that everyone was new at some point, and all she had to do was work hard. As she waited for the meeting to begin, her thoughts unexpectedly drifted back to her childhood. There had once been a boy named Noah, the kindest and brightest student in her class. He had always been surrounded by friends, but he somehow made everyone feel included. Emma had secretly admired him for years. Every school play, every sports day, every classroom celebration became special simply because he was there. She still remembered the little moments that had stayed with her all these years. The afternoon he helped her pick up the books she had accidentally dropped across the hallway. The day he shared his umbrella with her during a heavy rainstorm after school. The encouraging smile he gave her before a spelling competition when she was too nervous to speak. They were small acts of kindness that Noah probably forgot long ago. But for Emma, they had become treasured memories she could never erase. She had wanted to tell him how she felt many times, but fear always stopped her. Then, without warning, Noah's family moved to another city before the school year ended. She never got the chance to say goodbye. Life slowly moved on, and although she met many wonderful people over the years, a small part of her heart always wondered what had happened to the boy who had unknowingly become her first crush. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Everyone, please take your seats. Our department manager will be here in just a moment." Emma quickly straightened her posture and opened the notebook she had brought for orientation. Around her, the room buzzed with quiet excitement. The large conference room doors slowly opened. A tall man in a perfectly tailored black suit walked confidently inside. His posture was calm, his expression composed, and his presence instantly commanded the room's attention. Emma glanced up. Her heart nearly stopped. It couldn't be. The familiar dark eyes, the gentle smile. The same face she had imagined countless times over the years, only now older, more confident and impossibly handsome. It was Noah. For a brief second, the entire room seemed to disappear. She could hear nothing except the sound of her own heartbeat. She wondered if she was dreaming. Noah scanned the room while greeting everyone with a professional smile. When his eyes reached Emma, they paused for the smallest moment. She was certain he recognized her. There was a flicker of surprise in his expression before he calmly continued, introducing himself as though nothing had happened. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Noah, your new department manager. I look forward to working with each of you and helping this team achieve great success together." His voice was steady and confident. Emma couldn't focus on another word. She kept searching his face for some sign of recognition, hoping he would smile, wave, or even mention that they had once shared a classroom years ago. But he remained completely professional, speaking to everyone equally without revealing the slightest hint that they knew each other. By the end of the meeting, Emma's excitement about her new job had been replaced by confusion. Did he truly not remember her? Or was he simply pretending that the girl who had quietly admired him throughout childhood had never been part of his life? As everyone left the conference room, Emma gathered her notebook and walked toward the door. Just as she stepped into the hallway, she heard footsteps behind her. She slowly turned around. For one brief moment, Noah looked directly into her eyes. Neither of them spoke. Then he gave a polite nod, exactly the kind a manager would give any employee before walking away. Emma watched him disappear down the hallway. The days that followed settled into a routine. But for Emma, nothing about it felt ordinary. Every morning she arrived early, determined to make a good impression. She buried herself in reports, attended meetings with confidence, and volunteered for extra responsibilities whenever she could. She had promised herself that no matter how complicated her emotions became, she would never let them interfere with her work. Noah, however, remained impossible to read. As department manager, he was respected by everyone. He listened carefully during meetings, praised good ideas, and treated every employee with fairness. Yet whenever he spoke to Emma, his tone became even more formal. He called her by her last name, discussed only work, and ended every conversation before it could become personal. At first, Emma told herself she was imagining it. But as the weeks passed, the distance between them became impossible to ignore. One afternoon, the team gathered in the conference room to present ideas for an important client. Emma had spent several nights preparing her presentation. Her hands trembled slightly as she connected her laptop to the projector. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath and began speaking. The room grew quiet. Her ideas were thoughtful, creative, and backed by careful research. Even the senior executives nodded in approval. When she finished, several co-workers applauded. Noah looked at the presentation for a moment before speaking. "Excellent work, Emma. Your preparation shows. We'll move forward with your proposal." His compliment was brief, professional, and sincere. Although everyone congratulated her afterward, Emma couldn't help wishing he had smiled the way he used to years ago. Instead, he simply collected his notes and left the room. Later that evening, most of the office had emptied. The lights in nearby buildings slowly switched, off as the city outside became covered in glowing streets and distant traffic. Emma remained at her desk, making a few final adjustments to the client files before heading home. The office was unusually quiet. Without warning, every light suddenly went out. The computers shut down. The air conditioning stopped. Darkness filled the room. Emma sighed. "Perfect timing," she whispered to herself. She reached into her bag, searching for her phone, but before she found it, a soft beam of light appeared from the hallway. Noah walked toward her, holding a flashlight. "There seems to be a power outage," he said calmly. "The backup generator should start soon." Emma nodded. "I'll be fine." He noticed the stack of papers on her desk. "You stayed late again." "I wanted everything ready for tomorrow." For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The silence felt strangely comfortable. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the office windows. Noah glanced toward the dark skyline before quietly saying, "You always stayed late whenever you were working on something important." Emma looked up in surprise. "What?" He smiled faintly. "In school." Her heart skipped a beat. "So you do remember?" He let out a quiet laugh. "Remember?" He looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much softer than they had been during the past few weeks. "Emma, I remember everything." She stared at him, unable to find the right words. "I remember you sitting by the window in 5th grade because you liked watching the rain." He took another slow step closer. "I remember you carrying that little blue notebook everywhere." Emma blinked. "The notebook where you wrote your dreams and filled every page with little drawings." She could hardly believe what she was hearing. "You actually remember that?" "I remember the spelling competition, where you almost cried because you thought you'd forgotten the last word." Emma laughed softly through her surprise. "You were the one who smiled at me before my turn. I hoped it would make you less nervous." It did. For the first time since joining the company, the formal distance between them disappeared. Emma looked down for a moment before asking the question that had been weighing on her heart since the day she saw him again. "If you remembered me, then why did you act like we were strangers?" Noah became quiet. He looked toward the rain-covered windows before answering honestly. "Because I'm your manager." Emma frowned slightly. "I didn't want anyone to think you were receiving special treatment because we knew each other." He paused before continuing. "I've worked hard to build trust with this team. If I treated you differently from the beginning, people would have talked. That wouldn't have been fair to you." Emma slowly realized that his distance had never been rejection. It had been protection. "I thought," she whispered, "I thought you'd forgotten me." "No." His answer came immediately. "I tried to forget you." She looked up surprised. "When my family moved away, I kept thinking about the friends I left behind." He smiled sadly. "But there was one person I missed more than anyone else." Emma felt tears beginning to gather in her eyes. "I searched for you online more than once over the years." "You did?" He nodded. "I never found you." A gentle silence filled the room. The emergency lights finally flickered on, casting a warm glow across the office. Noah looked at his watch before speaking softly. "It's getting late." Emma nodded, but neither of them moved. Years of unanswered questions had quietly disappeared in a single conversation. As they walked toward the elevator together, it no longer felt like a manager escorting an employee after work. It felt like the conversation they shared that rainy evening changed everything, though not in the way Emma expected. At work, Noah remained just as professional as before. Meetings were still formal, deadlines were still demanding, and he never showed favoritism. But now, behind every polite glance and quiet smile, there was an understanding between them that neither of them had to explain. Emma threw herself into her work with even greater determination. She wanted every success she achieved to be earned through her own effort. She arrived early each morning, volunteered for difficult projects, and often stayed late refining presentations until every detail was perfect. Her coworkers began seeking her advice, impressed by her creativity and dedication. A month later, the company announced a competition between departments to develop a proposal for one of its biggest clients. Winning the project would bring recognition throughout the company and open new opportunities for everyone involved. Emma immediately accepted the challenge. For weeks, she barely had time to think about anything else. She researched the client's business, created innovative ideas, revised countless reports, and practiced her presentation until she could deliver it with complete confidence. Noah watched her progress quietly, offering guidance only when she asked, treating her exactly as he treated every other employee. The day of the presentation finally arrived. Senior executives from headquarters filled the conference room. The atmosphere was tense as each department presented its ideas. When Emma's turn came, she stood before the audience with calm confidence. Every slide reflected weeks of hard work. Every answer she gave demonstrated careful preparation. By the time she finished, the room was silent for a moment before warm applause filled the room. The executives exchanged impressed glances. One of them smiled and said, "Excellent work. This proposal exceeds our expectations." Emma felt an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time in years, she truly believed in herself. A few days later, the official announcement was made. Her department had won the project. Not only that, but Emma was promoted to senior project coordinator because of her outstanding performance. Her coworkers surrounded her with congratulations, flowers, and applause. "You deserve this," one colleague said. "You earned every bit of it," another added. Across the room, Noah simply smiled with quiet pride. That evening, after the celebration had ended and most employees had gone home, Emma found a handwritten note on her desk. "Meet me on the rooftop before you leave." There was no signature. She already knew who had written it. As the elevator doors opened onto the rooftop, a cool evening breeze greeted her. The city stretched endlessly beneath a sky painted with shades of orange, pink, and deep blue. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, thousands of lights began sparkling across the skyline, making the entire city seem magical. Noah stood near the railing, his hands resting in his pockets as he admired the view. "You came," he said with a gentle smile. "I was curious." For a few moments, they simply stood together, enjoying the peaceful silence. Then Noah reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. "I've been carrying something for a long time." He carefully handed her a small, slightly worn envelope. Emma opened it slowly. Inside was a folded piece of paper that had faded with age. As she unfolded it, her eyes widened. It was a childhood drawing. She immediately recognized the colorful crayons and uneven handwriting. The picture showed two children standing beneath a large oak tree beside their elementary school. Above them, written in crooked letters, were the words, "Best friends forever." A small smile escaped through her tears. "I drew this. You gave it to me on the last day before my family moved away. I thought you had thrown it away." "I couldn't." He laughed softly. "It traveled with me through 3 different cities, 2 apartments, college, and every office I've ever worked in." Emma carefully held the drawing against her chest. "You kept it all this time?" "I kept it because I could never forget the person who gave it to me." She looked at him speechless. Noah took a slow breath before continuing. "There's something I've wanted to tell you for years." Emma listened quietly. "When we were kids, I liked you." She blinked in surprise. "I wanted to tell you before I moved away." He smiled awkwardly. "I even practiced what I was going to say." "What happened?" "My parents told me we were leaving 2 days earlier than expected." His voice softened. "I never got the chance." Emma laughed gently through tears. "I thought I was the only one who never found the courage." "No, He shook his head. We were both scared. A tear slipped down Emma's cheek. I spent years wondering if you even remembered my name. I remembered much more than your name. He looked directly into her eyes. I remembered your laugh, the way you always encouraged everyone around you. The dreams you wrote in your notebook, and the girl who believed she wasn't good enough even though she always was. Emma could no longer hold back her emotions. You have no idea how much those words mean to me. Noah smiled warmly. I think I do. He pointed toward the glowing office windows behind them. When you walked into my office on your first day, I recognized you immediately. You looked exactly the same when you smiled. Emma laughed. I was sure you'd forgotten me. I was trying very hard not to let my emotions interfere with my responsibilities. He paused before adding with a grin, It was much harder than I expected. They both laughed. The years of unanswered questions, missed opportunities, and silent feelings suddenly seemed to melt away. Noah reached into his pocket one last time. This time he revealed a tiny silver keychain shaped like a star. You gave me this after I helped you win that spelling competition. Emma gasped. I completely forgot about it. I never did. He placed it gently into her hand. I think it's time you had it back. Emma closed her fingers around the little star, tears shining in her eyes. Maybe life separated us because we needed time to become the people we were, meant to be. Noah nodded. And maybe it brought us back together because this time, neither of us is afraid anymore. The city lights sparkled below.